Hey, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of StuTube. Don't forget, please subscribe to my StuTube channel so you'll always know when a fresh one has come out. Or now you can also subscribe to my blog so you can get all these thoughts written down so you can think about them, share them, pass them along, as well as these StuTubes. Either way, we love to have you check us out whenever we get a chance to push some more content at you. Today, I'm going to answer a question that parents ask me all the time. They say to me, Stu, you work with a lot of kids. What would be the best way for me to ruin my child? And I often answer that in a way I'm not fond of, with a question. I say, well, do you want to ruin them intentionally or unintentionally? They think about it and they always say, well, let's go unintentionally. Let's make it a little more subtle than most ruining of children. So I say one great way to do that, especially as students, because this is how I deal with them, is to pigeonhole them as students, or as people, certainly, but especially as students. It does a really good job kind of crushing their tiny little minds and souls if, when they're very young and still in elementary school, even really still teenagers, their brains, that kind of still that formula of pudding. If you say to them, you are a reader, you're a math student, you're STEM, you're a helicopter pilot, put them in a pigeonhole, leave them there, and then watch with fun the results when they start to get to middle school, or they face different challenges, or things change on them. And all of a sudden, it's not quite fitting that picture that you've given to them and that they've cleaved to their souls as true. Because it happens to us all the time. We get kids moving into middle school, they hit a wall in math, usually called algebra, or usually called the SHSAT, and they're not doing as well as their self-image has allowed for. Or they get to a difficult part of math and they give up because they're told they're not math students. Or they start to get to harder readings and they can't figure out why they stink, why they're such great readers, they're reading all the time, and now they can't do very well on this reading. So we blame the test and being tricky and all that. We've talked about that before, but it's not that, is it? No. It's that situations have changed. And students may have been good at reading what they were reading. They may have been good at math for what they were doing. Uh, and they probably still can be good, but they have to change. They have to adapt. But what students and often families and parents and caregivers and teachers often assume good means easy. And that if it's easy for them, they're good at it. If it gets hard, there's a problem. And it shouldn't be hard. And so they quit or they change or they don't change, unfortunately. Um, in math, being good at math in elementary school usually means that you're good at basic arithmetic. You're good with small little numbers. You might be able to stack and add, stack and subtract, and fractions haven't caused you to say bye-bye. But then you get to algebra, you get to middle school, you get to pre-algebra, even the early stuff in algebra, and it requires process, and it requires writing things out, and it requires being careful. And the young math geniuses, they're in fourth and fifth grade, you could do everything in your head. And then all of a sudden you can't do everything in your head. And they think, oh my God, something's wrong here. I'm good at math. I can just power my way through this. And they can't. You have to learn process. I mean, there are some people that maybe can do into higher math that need process. But that doesn't make you bad at math. It just means you need to learn how to write stuff out and do your steps properly. And then you get to find out if you're actually good at math or a math person. That's the dopiest idea that we saddle our children with, that they're math people or STEM people or English people, verbal people. which you may be when you're 20 or maybe 30 or 40 when men mature. But the point is, you can't pigeonhole them, because also then we get kids. The other problem is they're doing great in math, and then they get to these tests and they're horrible because the math they're doing in their school is regressive, retardaire, meaning that they're learning 5th grade math in 7th grade. So they're 2 years behind. And I hear it all the time, but they're getting A's in school. The other problem is they're getting A's because they're good little worker bees. They're doing all their homework assignments. They're remembering what they need for the test and then forgetting it. But a test in math, a standardized test, and there's a good thing about tests, is they're not testing what you learned yesterday. They're testing the breadth of your knowledge and that you've internalized this. And so if you're just doing things to get a good grade, which is as invalid a measure of knowledge as tests may be, I think perhaps more, depending on your school, then your A is meaningless. And it's the same for reading. You get kids all the time. Oh, they're great. He reads hundreds. Little Mickey reads hundreds of books, but they're all fiction. They're all snack foods, junk food, maybe even. They go fast. Fiction is like watching TV. Some of it, it's passive. You're along for the ride. You're following the dragon or the girl with the arrows or whoever, or the guy with the wizard thing in his head. And you just sit back. You don't have to process what you're reading. If you get it wrong, who cares? Nobody's asking you what happened to Harry Potter. You know he's going to win. It's Harry Potter. Spoiler alert. But when you get to toothier texts, when you get to things with details, when you get to complex, boring nonfiction, those kids might get lost. And all of a sudden, but he's a good reader. No, he's not. But she reads so many books, but she doesn't really pay attention to what she's reading. It's like we don't always chew our food, or we don't always eat nutritious foods. It's the same thing with reading and processing. And God, don't get me starting on writing. Actually, I'll start on writing on my next YouTube, StuTube. So don't forget, you want to ruin your kids. Tell them what they are really early. Tell them way before it makes any sense to define them. Go ahead, define them. Go ahead. And then when you have a little bit of friction, come to me, I'll fix it. But if you don't want to ruin your kids, stay flexible. Don't pigeonhole your own brain either, all right? And then come to me anyway. I'll make them even better. Listen, it was great seeing you. Come back again. Subscribe. That way you'll know when to come back. Or subscribe to my blog. My next blog, exciting, is going to be about teaching kids technology. Not teaching kids with technology. Dumb idea. Teaching kids technology. Okay? It's like teaching them to use a pencil rather than whacking them in the head with a pencil. Okay? So check that out. Check out my blog when you get the chance. Come back for StuTube, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.